I don't need any calming tea, Zuko said calmly. Welcome to another episode of Tea and Toffees, a twice-monthly We Top a podcast. Hello, I'm Neitshayd, an undead demon.
And hello, I'm Cecilia, a former witch.
So, Avatar, The Last Airbender. My honor, it is an honorary anime because it's technically speaking not an anime, but often counted among the anime scene. Doesn't matter as much these days because these days the lines are blurry anyway, but yeah, it's an honorary anime.
Honor!
So, there's a Netflix live-action TV show coming out soon.
Indeed. It's scheduled for the end of February.
It would have made sense for us to wait for the live-action to come out, of course. But we generally only cover shows after the tea has not only grown cold, the water has evaporated, and what's left has grown mold. I think our Good Omens episodes were the only ones we made more or less on time after the release of Season 2. Which actually makes me want to reschedule these episodes, because I had totally forgotten that the live action was a thing that was going to happen when I scheduled these episodes. And I only realized this by the time it was already too late and Sissy had already almost finished her notes. And I can't just do that to you.
Thank you for not doing that to me.
Anyway, let me start with the controversial stuff just to get it out of the way. Last Airbender is a good show, but not a masterpiece, and I do not like Katara. I might even dislike her.
Avatar The Last Airbender is, as you said, not a masterpiece. But it's a really good show, and I like it. I'm not going to comment on your Katara statement, though.
I'll take that to mean you also don't like her.
Well, now you are putting words in my mouth.
Yeah, well, of course I am.
Yeah, what else would you be doing?
Anyway, we were doing 2 episodes, obviously. It's in the title, this is part 1. This one will be a general overview of the franchise, our personal history with it, the animation, narrative, storytelling, yada yada. Including the question, very important question. Should Aang have killed Fire Lord Ozai?
Ooh.
And part 2 is an entire episode dedicated to the world building, because of course it is, but also not dedicated to the world building, because that's been overdone so much. And then we'll do a 3rd episode for Legend of Korra, and how it fares as a sequel, and all that entails. Okay, Last Airbender franchise. Avatar: The Last Airbender started with a 3-season animated series that was heavily influenced by Asian and Arctic cultures and lots of martial arts styles in Hinduism and Buddhism and also anime.
I watched that.
It aired on Nickelodeon from 2005 to 2008. Ah, nostalgia. I didn't even watch it when it aired, but still, this show is over 15 years old.
Old and still good.
For the most part, yes. Added to this were several comic series and graphic novels. The comics set during the show, graphic novels set after the original series, some are still going to this day, all of which I've read. There are several novels, including a prequel series about Avatar Kyoshi, none of which I've read. There's also something about the other Avatar, Korra or whatever his name was, the water dude. No one cares about him, the water dude.
Wait, there's something about the water dude? I thought there was 2 novels about Yang Cheng, the air nomad.
She also had? I definitely know that Kyoshi has novels.
Yeah,
I'm not sure about the others.
Has novels, and Yang Cheng also got novels. And if I remember correctly, she is the air nomad avatar before Aang.
Yes. I have her in my notes later.
She has a terrifying scream.
She's awesome. So,
yes.
Yeah, there's also an animated sequel series called Legend of Korra that we'll talk about in another episode. A live-action film we will only mention this one time and never again, which is a lie. Video games.
Wait. There are video games?
Yes. no one cares about them.
Oh. Yeah,
And
no.
of course, the upcoming Netflix live action series to be released in February 2024. And supposedly a trilogy of animated films is in production as well, but no one knows what's going on there. So, short detour about comics and graphic novels. They're basically the same, but basically also not. You could say a graphic novel is a comic depicting a novel narrative, which means it has a proper story arc with a conclusion, even if it's a part of a series. Whereas comics are serialized, as in they're part of a long-running series, very, very long-running sometimes. You can pick up a graphic novel on its own and understand what's going on usually, but not some random comic issue. Generally doesn't work. Comics that come to mind are, of course, Marvel and DC. Archie comics as well. Just, yeah. In case of Last Airbender, you have graphic novel trilogies, so 3 parts coming together as one narrative, and there are currently 6 of those trilogies forming a larger narrative together. Legend of Korra graphic novels seem to follow the same pattern. We have 2 trilogies right now, another one in the works. The Last Airbender comics supply additional fun adventures to the main story, and the graphic novels explore what happens after. They are generally more serious, but there's still some fun in there. For example, Uncle Iroh invents bubble tea. Aang has a cult now. We learn what up shit happened to Zuko's mom. Grand Kana and Master Paco elope. You know how it is.
Weird shit? Good shit.
Yes. So, a little bit more about what is our personal history of Avatar. I am going first, because I'm an egoistical demon.
And I don't mind.
I watched Last Airbender on TV many, many years ago. I did not watch all episodes, because missing an episode meant that you missed it. That's just how TV works. So I got to see some of those episodes many times over the years, and some only once or twice. The first time I watched it in full was either a TV marathon, which must have been years ago because I haven't watched TV regularly in over 6 years, or when we got Netflix. I'm not sure now. It was either one of those.
I can't tell you.
As I mentioned, I read all of the graphic novels at least once, if not twice. I saw the film that we will never mention again, and this time that is the truth, and did not consume any other additional media. So I didn't read the comics, actually. Just the graphic novels. Legend of Korra, well, I never actually watched that one in full before preparing for this episode. Never on Nickelodeon. I tried 3 times when it came to Netflix, but the farthest I came was halfway through book 2, episode 6. Which now that I have actually watched it the 4th time in full, I can see why I stopped there. And I should have continued on. Because the seasons 3 and 4 are actually not that bad.
And now it's my turn. What child hasn't watched this show? Who doesn't know My grandmother used to tell me stories about the old days.
I don't.
Eh?
But it seems familiar. Is that Katara's intro thingy?
That's the opening of the first episode. And yes, Katara's intro thingy, although slightly altered, I think, because I did notice by watching that the opening of the first episode is like slightly different, a bit longer, gives us more exposition for the show.
Makes sense. Well, I suppose could be that I just haven't seen that episode often enough because of TV stuff.
I guess, but it is the iconic line that many people think of.
Is it?
When they're thinking of Last Airbender. Besides the obvious, honor!
No, the obvious one is, and then the Fire Nation attacked. That's the obvious one. Everyone knows that.
And the Fire Nation attacked. Bad Fire Nation.
And I want to say whatever comes before that, but I don't actually remember what comes before that.
Well, do you know what comes before that? Katara's grandmother used to tell her stories about the old days.
What is it?
But then everything changed. The 4 nations were living together in peace and harmony. And then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
Yeah, that part. And then everything changed when the Fire Nation... That's the iconic one. That one I would have known. Okay.
Well, then I will go with that one the next time that is not going to happen. But yeah, I watched the show as a child when it aired on TV. I also remember that when I watched it as a kid on television, at least I think the first time around, or maybe the second time as well, they had these little informative bubbles pop up. They explained that Azula's fire, for example, was blue because it's hotter than the standard red fire. In the flashback we got in season 1 to Zuko receiving his scar, we got that bubble to also got a bubble to inform us that while Iroh looks away, Zuko's sister Azula is enjoying the show, or something along those lines. And at the time, we hadn't yet been introduced to Azula as a character, so the bubble told us who she is, and I was like, oh, that's the sister. Because otherwise, I wouldn't have known who that character is. I mean, obviously, you learned that later, but
yeah,
as a kid, I enjoyed that. I was like, oh yes, thank you for the additional information.
But that's so odd. It sounds like a really odd thing. Was that on a channel specifically for children? Because I cannot imagine teenagers or adults to actually want something like that. Because I would just be, why is that there?
I think...
To be fair, I was never a child, so...
Well, I think that was back in the day when Nickelodeon was still Nick. I think. And Nick is a kids channel, or was. Anyways.
And Nick is also really... Nickelodeon in general is weird. It's odd that it produced something like Last Airbender in the first place.
Well, let me continue. When I was a teenager, the show sometimes got these special TV showings where the channel would air all episodes on the weekend, what you called a TV marathon, which, yeah, fitting. And whenever that happened, I wouldn't sleep in as long as I usually did just to watch more episodes of the show.
Understandable.
Yes, thank you. And even while I was in university, I would still watch the show, but not on TV anymore. Then on Netflix when it was released on Netflix, and we got Netflix at one point. Then I was like, yeah, sure, let's watch it again. Ooh, green fire in Ba Sing Se, pretty. I don't know why I specifically remember that one, but yeah, memories are weird. Yeah, it came around when I was a child and it simply never left. It just stayed. And now a live action adaptation by Netflix is in production and will be released in February of 2022. 24.
Don't.
It hasn't been released yet.
No, and don't remind me. No. Going to be so recent.
Remind you again. That
the tea is not cold anymore.
The tea is not cold and moldy anymore. Now someone has made a fresh brew.
We have some thoughts on this later in this episode. I think I forgot to mention that in the intro. Oops. Let's get some technicalities out of the way first. Animation, voice editing, soundtrack, whatever, you know? Yeah, Last Airbender is still on the good old 4:3 format. Been ages since I've seen that one. These days everything is, what is it, 16:9?
Yeah, 16:9.
Which funny,
the tablet is still 4:3, which is nice. I can use the full screen.
Yeah, it's just funny because if you multiply 4 by 4, you get 16, and 3 by 3 is 9. Yes.
Never noticed. Wow.
Yeah, this show 15 years later still has awesome 2D animation, and then you have these completely out of place 3D animation mixed in and there, because of course you do. It's so typical. Yeah. Although, yeah, for all that the animation is truly stunning, there are some mistakes that made it in here and there. I put some on screen. Like, what the happened there? How did that make it into the final product? How?
I can't tell you. I don't know.
Still, the fights are very well choreographed. I am honestly really impressed.
They did good.
It's especially noticeable if you compare it to Legend of Korra, which is a bit sad for Korra, but we will discuss that in the Korra episode. It's just, for Last Airbender, the fights are really, really well choreographed and animated. It's really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Soundtrack, I cannot tell you a single thing about the soundtrack.
I also have no opinion on it. I know it was there. Does that mean it was really good? Because I didn't notice its presence and it never took me out of the scene either.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
So they did good with that as well.
You also did not notice an absence of music, so it was there.
Yeah. Was
So,
there. You didn't particularly
that's what
notice
soundtrack
its
is for.
presence. No, its absence was like, was always present.
Yeah, it's you
Always
don't notice that
supportive.
it's there. If it
Never the
wasn't there,
main
you would
part.
notice the absence, and it never takes you out of the scene. I'm gonna look judgingly at Violet Evergarden, and then I'm moving on, because I just remembered. I did notice that Zuko and Iroh have their own sort of theme music. I took notice of that. It's whenever those two are on scene, they get the same kind of, or similar, I'm not sure whether it's the same track, at least in the first few seasons until Zuko joins the crew. I took notice of that, and a lot of the soundtrack seems to have been inspired by traditional Asian music scores. Because of course.
Of course.
But I'm not human, Cia's not Asian, so we're not really qualified to judge that, are we?
Nope, we are not.
Same for major parts of the world building, but that's next episode, not this one. The voice acting, that one is superb in all aspects. It's really, really, really great. It is so good.
Yes, and yes.
So good. On the matter of voice acting, I noticed in Legend of Korra, ironically enough, that Iroh has a different VA. And I thought, that's unfortunate, but the new one is doing a good job. And then I looked it up, and the wiki told me Iroh's first VA only voiced him for Last Airbender books 1 and 2. And then someone else took over for book 3, and that's the person that came back for Legend of Korra, and I never noticed that.
Me neither.
And I wondered, why did I only notice the switch in Legend of Korra? What does that say about Korra? But so why did I not notice it in Last Airbender where it happened? But thinking about it, well, perhaps it's because we don't get to hear Uncle Iroh for a while in book 3, because he's in prison and talking to Zuko. And then after that, his demeanor is decidedly more solemn and less goofy compared to books 1 and 2. And he might have gotten fewer lines, if I think about it.
Yeah, I think he did have fewer lines in book 3. Yeah, and in Legend of Korra, he is in the spirit world, and you would expect, once again, this more carefree Iroh, which we had at the beginning of Last Airbender. But, yeah. And also the voice actor probably just aged, so maybe he couldn't get the Iroh voice to sound exactly the same.
He was always he was a lot of the time specifically hired to stand in for Mako, who's the original voice actor. So he was very used to imitating Mako. But yeah, a lot of time passed between Last Airbender and Korra, so yeah, of course that's just people online say that Iroh having not so many lines in book 3 and the voice actor changing was a coincidence. They already had planned to give him fewer lines, and it was a lucky coincidence, I'd say, because yeah. The Mako from Legend of Korra is also named in honor of Iroh's first VA. And that is why that one episode, the Tales in Ba Sing Se, where Iroh is mourning his son, says in honor of Mako. I wondered about that whenever it came up, and I never looked into it until now. So
yeah, same.
That's why.
I always wondered, but never bothered to look it up. So thank you for telling me.
Yeah, So yeah, obviously he died. Mako died, unfortunately, between recordings for books 2 and 3.
Oh.
And apparently that Ba Sing Se episode also has both VAs in it, and lots of people noticed that. I didn't, but
Me neither.
I didn't pay attention either. And I didn't know there was a shift until I was like, Iroh sounds different in Legend of Korra. But yeah, no one can replace Marco because that man was a genius. But the replacement voice actor did a good job. As feasible of a good job as he could do, I think, under the circumstances. Because of course you can't just be perfectly the same as someone else.
Yeah, impossible.
No matter how good of an actor or voice actor you are, there's always a little bit of flavor of your own. And every voice is unique. So, yeah. Those were the technicalities, just to get them out of the way. It's like, yeah, really good stuff, right? Good animation, good choreography, good music, apparently, good voice acting. How about narratives and storytelling and also character arcs? Because that's also important, apart from the world building. Last Airbender has a very interesting balance between being fun and serious. You notice this right from the start. That's a very interesting one. Because, yeah. The comedy has aged, though. Not necessarily badly, but not well either. It just aged.
As do all things in life.
Most things. Not all of them.
What doesn't age? An undead demon?
Well, for one, yes.
Aye.
So let's have some examples of stuff that's serious but also fun. Aang is in jail at one point for a crime that Kyoshi committed. And then the other prisoners just give him love advice. And Aang casually pulls his head out of the pillory, which is apparently this wooden head and wrist shackle thingy. Pillory. We learn a new thing every day. In the same episode, we get this very realistic quote. Evidence? Ha! That's not how our court system works. I say what happened, and then you say what happened, and then I decide who's right. That's why we call it justice, because it's just us. I love that. It's so realistic.
Oh, it really is, and that's sad.
Yeah, also, this quote, all old people know each other. Don't you know that? And they're all part of the same ancient secret society. And half of the Big Shot members are from the evil Fire Nation. Or this lovely piece from Book 3. I can't believe the captain remembered my birthday. He really does care. And then Zukka eats them out and into the ocean. And then this dude he just met just goes like, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
This show's awesome.
Oh, yeah. I also have two things, I believe. Yes, two things. Let me get into the emotional state. This is no tea. It's just hot leaf juice. Isn't that what all tea is? How could a member of my own family say something like that?
Oh, no.
Sad, very sad. And I'm sick of tea. How can you be sick of tea? That's like being sick of breathing.
Zuko. Zuko, yeah. It's a very fine balance, and it's very odd if you're not used to it. When you watch the first episode, you're like, but it's really fun, and it works. It really works. Although, yeah, the comedy has aged, but curious how the live action. Later. So since the very first episode begins with Katara introducing us to the world, does that mean Katara is the main protagonist of Last Airbender?
No.
Oh, right. Yes, Zuko is.
Exactly.
I do love that. I don't like Katara, but I love that we get a strong female character right in episode 1, telling her sexist brother where to stick it. Generally, episode 1 seems like bending isn't all that common, which is a good introduction to the world, and it's not common where we are right now, in the South Pole. And then we can smoothly slide into bending is super normal, and everyone does not do it later on. Episode 1 also directly introduces us to headstrong Katara, serious but also goofy Zukka, airheaded Aang, stern and my honor Zuko, and grandfatherly Iroh. In one episode, that is like barely 25 minutes. All these characters, except for Iroh maybe, undergo massive character arcs throughout the show, which is very impressive. Every one of them has to learn lessons and have revelations about oneself, aka character development. Aang's whole thing about accepting the responsibilities of being the Avatar and the moral dilemma of being expected to kill Ozai that we will get into at the end of this episode is one such arc.
Aang starts as, what war? Next second, penguin! He has a non-existent attention span, is easily distracted, and he is hyperactive. Does he have ADHD?
Probably.
Maybe. And then he grows into his role as the Avatar, and his role in the war, and how to find a way to not kill the Fire Lord and stay true to himself.
More on that later. Zukka, of course, leaving misogyny behind, growing into his position as a leader and how to be a good strategist, as he makes mistakes along the way. This was actually spread across multiple episodes, seasons even, and generally very well done. To which I want to add that the Kyoshi warriors are awesome and Zukka and Suki are a perfect foil for each other.
First lesson to learn on Kyoshi Island is that the typical gender norms are garbage. Men are fighters and women cook and sew? Hell no.
Agree. Also Katara having a temper, being childish, as a child is, you know. And then Katara overcoming jealousy and Katara facing the murder of her mother and all that.
Even when she hates with all her heart, she can't bring herself to kill the murderer of her mother. A man who followed orders and did his job. He might have found enjoyment in his job, the cruelty, but now he is an old man, living his life under the rule of his mother, and he is pathetic. It wouldn't have made a difference. It wouldn't have quelled her hatred. It wouldn't have undone what has already been done. It would only have make her a murderer. She grew as a character. She still hates him, but doesn't give in to her emotions as much anymore. Character growth, yes.
And then there was Zuko.
Zuko. I need to capture the Avatar. I need to regain my honor. It's all about honor. I'm a bad guy, but will rescue the Avatar from Zhao and try to help the poor people of the Earth Kingdom while traveling alone, and I will become a good person. But then I will betray the good people and my uncle after all, only to realize it was the wrong decision all along, and now I somehow need to prove that I'm a good person again.
Nice.
Lovely,
First
lovely
try.
character. Yes.
Not as fast as I can do it, but
Yeah.
without mistakes. I'm impressed. Congratulations,
thank you.
Azia.
Maybe over time I can get closer to your speed. I might never match it.
No, please don't. We need someone to break up what I'm saying.
Yeah, true.
To get some breathing pauses in there. But without the
Yes.
actual breathing, please and thank you.
I will try, but I'm still a human being and not an underdemon and need to breathe. But I try my best to make breathing pauses.
Thank you.
Zuko. We are shown that he is a good person at heart, but just hasn't found the right environment yet where he can be good. His uncle supports him unconditionally, yes, but it was drilled into him from childhood that being good is a weakness. He viewed his mother as good and then she was gone. Being good means being weak. And he can't afford weakness if he ever wants to gain his father's love. Because who cares about honor? Father's love is what he wants.
Equals honor, technically.
Yeah, true. And he has to learn that he doesn't actually need his father's love. Once he is back in the Fire Nation and has everything he has ever dreamed of, he slowly realizes that the life he always dreamed about is not the life he wants anymore. On his way to achieve his dream, he changed, and now he doesn't fit into his old dream anymore. He needs a new one.
Zuko's redemption arc is so great because he suffered greatly for it and he had to face the consequences of his own actions many times. And redeeming himself wasn't easy. He doesn't even manage it the first time he tries. But he still made it through and continued to try and be a better person. And he also doesn't get to be the one who actually takes down Azula in the end, which like that Onafasu Katara, which is also like good. It would have been a good catharsis and end for his character arc, a finale, but nah. We don't need that for him. He's already redeemed himself.
Yeah, we don't need that. I really love his character arc. Zuko and Iroh are my favorite characters in the show. And it would have been even better if we had gotten Zuko with long hair. Like his father, grandfather, and mother had, you know?
Long-haired Zuko.
Hair. Oh.
Long-haired Zuko is best Zuko.
Yes.
We have some fan art online, and there's this one official Legend of Korra art. I think it's official Legend of Korra. He has long hair, yes.
Yes. I mean, when he is old in Legend of Korra, he does have long hair, but we need Zuko with long hair when he's still young.
Yeah, we got like that one official one and lots of good fan art.
Thank you to all the artists who did those fan arts. Thank you.
Which incidentally made me ship Zuko with Sokka. Because I looked for long-haired Zuko and found long-haired Zuko with older Sokka, and I was like,
Well, just things that happen along the way.
I mean, since I was always like, why don't I enjoy Zuko and Katara? And I was like, yeah, because I don't like Katara. Whoops. So Zuko and Sokka it is. Yeah. Great arc. And then we get a reverse arc for Azula, of course, the genius prodigy who lost her mind.
The short interaction between her and her father when he declares himself Phoenix King is a very nice example of Azula's unstable mental state because of her father's abuse. It's very in character, but also foreshadows her later descent into further madness. Azula never learned to trust. Her father showed her affection when she met expectations and did as she was told. No unconditional love. Her mother was abusive in a different way. Azula was convinced her mother saw her as a monster. Who would love a monster? She chose to protect herself from the hurt by telling herself she doesn't need to be loved by her mother, that she is in fact a monster. The mother is to blame, but the daughter tries to take the blame onto herself. Her mother loves Zuko, that much is obvious, but she doesn't love her. So it's not that her mother can't love her own child. So Azula concludes that the fault must therefore lie with her. Poor child. It's also easy to forget that she is in fact only 14 years old.
Indeed. Because she acts very mature. Because she has to. And she is. She is a child prodigy after all. And the way she grew up and all. It's.
Yeah.
Yes. A lot of great characters, as everyone can see. And then there are also the characters who have already undergone their arcs. Uncle Iroh, to name one, who we must not forget was a war general, next in line to become Fire Lord, and most certainly not an innocent with no kills under his name.
Yet we meet him as a kind, patient, wise old man who truly cares for his nephew. Iroh is open-minded and didn't only study the teachings of the Fire Nation. He also studied waterbending and came up with the lightning redirecting. It's his knowledge of not only firebending teachings, but also teachings of the other elements that make him a very formidable foe. And he has a connection to the spirit world, which, nice.
Yeah, Last Airbender is a character-driven story at its heart, in addition to great world building, though not perfect as will be discussed next episode. It also excels in portraying great characters that are surprisingly complex for a kids' show. Even if the episodic style and the fact that it is a kids' show hinder this a little bit, Last Airbender's character arcs and Zuko's in particular are excellent storytelling. The narrator slowly introduces us to the main cast. protagonists and important side characters and fleshes them out with each mini-story. You basically go on adventures with them and they grow on you, and that is an integral part of what makes this show so compelling.
Time for adventures!
And something Legend of Korra is unfortunately not doing as well, but oh well, we get to that.
Yeah.
I'll say that a lot. Or not. Maybe that was last time. Anyway, yeah, the plot of Last Airbender is fairly simple, but the characters and world building make up for that. The protagonists travel the world, have fun, start earthbender revolutions, you know, the usual.
The usual, what I do every Tuesday, you know?
Oh? Do you now? Yes, so the episodic style, which was kind of necessary back then. The times, you know. I don't. Anyway, makes each story very short, with not enough time to really truly flesh out each individual storyline. Some interactions seem rather fast-paced and rushed, changing directions faster than is realistic. First example that comes to mind is Zukka and Yue, and they even got more than one episode, like everyone else until this point, and it's still really, really rushed between them. So odd.
Yeah, the love story between Ahsoka and Yui really is rather rushed. Let's just think of it as a quash and it's fine. The first example that comes to mind is Kyoshi Island, actually.
To your mind, yeah, Kyoshi Island also, but oddly enough for me, it didn't feel all that rushed. Even though it was just one episode, but with you, you had this really great impact on Sokka, and I was like, but you didn't know each other long enough for that?
Yeah.
Whereas with Zuki, that one slowly builds up as we go through these. It's like she appears here and there and then again, so it feels like it's longer than it actually is.
Yeah, but I mean, for the North Pole, we actually, I think, when did they arrive? We had still 3 episodes, or like 2 more episodes, and Kyoshi Island, because Zuki does give Sokka a little kiss at the end.
Yes, but that one is really just a lovely sweet crush, like, okay, yep. And with you, it just felt so much more impactful, but they didn't have that much time to get. Anyway, yeah, it's just,
yeah,
those are just examples. Some stories just are rushed because of the episodic style.
Yeah.
Also, the mid-episode cuts are very noticeable. I think anime have some small animations or something there.
Sometimes.
Did Last Airbender originally have that, and they cut it out or was that just a commercial break, or did they just have this cut randomly in the middle for some reason?
I don't actually remember.
Who knows?
Who cares?
Last Airbender is essentially a collection of silly little stories tying into one serious overarching plot. Although halfway through book 2, we get into like the entire Ba Sing Se story. So like the second half of book 2 is about getting to and getting around Ba Sing Se. This breaks up the episodic style a little bit. Not that much, just a little bit. Puts more focus on the overarching plot line. Then season 3 returns to episodic until we get to like the final arc. Also, let it not be left unsaid that the Great Divide is not the only filler episode. It's not the only unnecessary one, yet people always dunk on that one for some reason.
If it's a filler, I still like it.
Some examples of excellent storytelling. We do actually see Aang train.
Is it a training arc?
No, it isn't. Even though it is. And that is great.
Yes.
Because of course we do get episodes that are focused on his training. First with Katara, then with Toph. That one episode with, was it Zhong or whatever?
Zhong.
Yeah. Like, yeah, there are those episodes, but it's not confined to those episodes where it is relevant. It's integrated with whatever other side plot is currently going on. And it's not thrown explicitly into our faces, but subtle. Yet it is still undeniably there. It's like, very often you can just see Aang and Katara bending water while talking about whatever plotline is currently going on. And this makes the story so much more realistic. Another great example. How do you recap your entire plot before the grand finale? by having the characters watch a parody play about their adventures to this point with comedy and title of the first episode of the show, The Boy in the Iceberg. Sources include singing nomads, pirates, prisoners of war, and a surprisingly knowledgeable merchant of cabbage.
Not my cabbages! The poor guy is so unlucky, running into Team Avatar and getting his cabbage store destroyed again, and again, and again.
Yes, the Ember Island play recap is hilarious. It is genius. It is something only Last Airbender could have ever pulled off. And Best Girl Toph is having the time of her life, as are we.
Oh, she definitely is having the time of her life. Even though she can only hear the play. Still having the time of her life.
Which brings me to my next example of very great storytelling. This ability never stops anyone in Avatar The Last Airbender. I mean, obviously we have Toph. And Tio in his wheelchair. And others, yeah,
Toph does not give a shit about all the coddling she receives. Just because she is blind doesn't mean that she is helpless.
Yeah, there's also Combustion Man with his prosthetic limbs. Like, yeah, they tell us he has metal limbs, and it's like, yeah, prosthetic limbs, but it didn't really register for me that, like, yeah, technically that's a disability because it just...
Yeah, it's easily overlooked.
It's not a disability for him. It just doesn't stop him.
Yeah.
And these characters are all unique. They're not defined by their disability. They are awesome in their own ways, but also not ridiculously overpowered. They are people like everyone else, just without the ability to see the same way others do or walk with their legs. We can take this further when we take, for example, Zuko with his scar into this, which is also a form of disability, or that the scar entails mentally and physically. There are a lot of fanfics where it's like, yeah, he has impacted hearing and vision on that side, which makes sense because that scar is like...
Yeah, would make sense.
Very heavy burn. Also has the shape of a hand. Yes, also the exploration of mental health with Aang's personal traumas, of which he has a lot and gains more as these books go on, and Asura's madness. And then in Legend of Korra we get some more. The Red Lotus water lady with her water arms. Korra getting poisoned and dealing with the aftermath. More on that maybe in the Legend of Korra episode.
Does benders losing their bending also fall under that? Because bending is connected to their life energy, or something along those lines.
Yes, I think so. And bending is connected to chi, which I will explain in part 2.
Okay.
You can look forward to that.
I am.
Okay, the big question. The moral dilemma. Should Aang have killed Ozai? Let's be real, it's a kids' show. We were never going to see a murder on screen. Although there are children's stories with murders in it, I think. Google will have examples, so I'm not going to bother, but imagine if Last Airbender had been rated for mature audiences. We might have seen an actual bloody war instead of entirely bloodless carnage. Wouldn't that have been great?
For you, that would have been very great.
There is a war going on. It should be bloody and not bloodless.
With a lot of burns.
So, do I have more notes in this one? No, I think I actually have also notes on that in the next episode. But yeah, sparing Ozai is of course in character for Aang. And it seems at first glance like a good solution for his moral dilemma. To allow Aang to stay true to himself, and also a good message overall. Killing Ozai would have been completely and absolutely against Aang's principles, against the values he has been taught by the monks for almost his entire life. And he did take on a risk by using energy bending on Ozai, because Ozai could have overpowered him and then everything would have been lost. The thing is, Aang did kill people before. The Fire Nation soldiers at the North Pole. And I'm not talking about the Spirit Merge, I'm talking about before that, when he went out with Appa to destroy the ships all on his own. We did not see it, but those soldiers probably drowned in icy ocean waters.
Yeah, he destroyed a dozen ships and threw people overboard. But it's like, yes, his actions killed them, but he didn't land a finishing blow because they drowned or died in the icy waters. So maybe
That's
he just...
still murder.
It's still murder, but did Aang think of it as such, or did his childish brain consciously ignore it?
Or did the creators consider it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the fact that the energy bending seems like a Deus Ex Machina at first glance, and also at second glance.
Now, time for my thoughts on the question. Should Aang have killed Fire Lord Ozai? Yes. I understand that the writers probably wanted to stay true to Aang and the way of the monks that he grew up with and show us that there's always another way to resolve things and killing isn't the answer. But we saw Aang struggling with people telling him to end a life on one hand, and what the monks taught him, that all life is sacred, on the other. The air nomads detached themselves from worldly concerns, but as we learn from the other avatars Aang talks to while meditating on the lion turtle, the avatar can't do that, should not do that. The avatar can't strictly follow the teachings of one nation. He needs to combine the teachings of all four nations. Well, as I previously learned, apparently there was a fifth nation for a brief period of time. It would help in understanding the viewpoints of individuals when conflict arises that the avatar needs to solve. He can't detach himself from the world because he is there to serve the world in a way. It would have given us the chance for more character growth, I think. You can't always have your will, after all. The world isn't fair and just. Coming to terms with this unpleasant side of being the avatar could have made for a nice comic continuation, in my opinion, so I say, kill him.
What was Aang's plan for the eclipse? Not kill Ozai? Risk having him break free the moment the eclipse is over?
I was wondering about that as well. They all kept talking about Aang is going to defeat the Fire Lord. And I kept wondering, why is the whole killing thing not coming up? Why is it always like defeat, defeat, defeat? And nobody actually says what defeat means.
In universe, Aang probably didn't even think about what he was actually going to do. Perhaps he knew deep down that he wasn't ready to face Ozai yet and so pushed the thought away. The others probably all assumed Aang was just going to off the Fire Lord. The Father Lord? Or perhaps the plan was for anyone part of the invasion to take out Ozai, whoever gets the chance to. Out of universe, the writers already knew the invasion was going to fail and either didn't bother thinking critically about the dilemma for that scenario, or maybe they hadn't even realized it was going to be a thing yet.
Well, they did specifically send Aang ahead, but maybe that was a last-minute change when they noticed the capital city was deserted. Who knows? Either of the options you presented is disappointing.
From the writers, yeah. From the standpoint out of in universe, well, we can do whatever we want, but out of universe, they probably just either didn't bother or hadn't thought of it yet. Which, yeah, both disappointing.
Yes.
Yeah, it was, of course, a punishment. Taking away Ozai's bending meant taking away what Ozai valued most, his power. For Ozai, this meant he was now a cripple. Even though there is nothing wrong with being a non-bender, but this is Ozai. So it was a worse punishment than death for the Fire Lord. Like Katara deciding that letting her mother's murderer live would be a worse punishment for him. And now Ozai is rotting in prison, while his good-for-nothing son is leading the Fire Nation in a way he would have never allowed. A better way. A way of peace.
And harmony.
Although his mere presence is still a threat to Zuko's reign. As shown in the graphic novels when some Ozai fans tried to stage a rebellion. And Azula is also influenced by her father before, while escaping and all. There's a lot going on in the graphic novels. I do like the solution we get, don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed Aang talking to his past lives, trying to figure out another way. This is an essential part of being the Avatar, after all. One that gets taken away from Korra later on. I also love the lion turtle. I only wish it hadn't been shooed in at last minute and been alluded to before. They could have also just had one of the past avatars allude to the technique in passing, and that a lion turtle or a spirit would know, or something along those lines. We've been to the spirit world before. It's vast and mysterious and full of many strange creatures that know many strange things, so it would have been fitting to give the knowledge about energy bending to some spirit Aang has to seek out.
Yeah, the lion turtles could have made for a nice addition, world-building wise, if expanded on correctly. But we will talk about that more in Legend of Korra.
Because they didn't do it in a good way. Yes. And just because I liked the solution and wanted Aang to spare Ozai's life doesn't change whether he should or should not have killed the man. At the very least, Aang should have been ready to do it as a last resort if all else failed. For the greater good and all that. Murder is obviously not okay from a human standpoint. For your morals. And it is, in a way, like the trolley problems Azia likes to tell me about. Yes. Do you kill one man and save thousands of lives? Is his life worth less than that of other people?
More. Because in the trolley problem, it's like, is the life of this one...
either way, is it worth less than other people's? Doesn't matter. It depends on the question you pose. Like, is it worth less than other people so we can kill him? Is it worth more than other people so we don't kill him and risk their lives? It's, depends on the question you ask.
Too many questions.
If it weren't for the energy bending, how could Aang have ensured that Ozai would be unable to bring more harm, kill more people? This is an incredibly dangerous man, comment or not. So one could say Aang refusing to kill him before he got the energy bending, was a selfish desire, to which the air nomad avatar you ask about has this nice quote, and I think Cecilia already alluded to parts of it.
Yes, the quote from Yang Chen.
Yeah, that one, Yang Chen. Avatar Aang, she says, I know that you are a gentle spirit, and the monks have taught you well, but this isn't about you. This is about the world. And then she continues. Many great and wise air nomads have detached themselves and achieved spiritual enlightenment, but the Avatar can never do it, because your sole duty is to the world. Here is my wisdom for you. Selfless duty calls you to sacrifice your own spiritual needs, and do whatever it takes to protect the world. Out of all the avatars Aang talks to, I like this one the most. It's devastating for Aang to hear this, to have a fellow air nomad tell him that the principles and values he was raised with are not for him to follow, because he is the avatar and the world always has to come first for him. As Cecilia also said already, it would have been interesting to see Aang deal with the consequences, with how it would weigh on his conscience, how he would have coped with the guilt, and how his friends would have helped, or made matters worse at first. Aang was facing a moral dilemma and looking for a seemingly impossible solution, and he found it. But what if there was no solution, no right answer? Just like the other avatars told him, they all knew this wasn't an easy decision. Some had to face the same dilemma themselves, and they did tell him. They told him reasons why he had to make the choice to kill Ozai despite his moral values telling him otherwise. How would he have dealt with that outcome? It is the Avatar's responsibility to keep the world in balance. There is no way around that. And Aang couldn't have ever consciously allowed Ozai to raise the Earth Kingdom to the ground. That's just not possible. So, yeah, I like the solution we get. But whether it was the right decision is another more complicated matter. Presenting the solution to us in a different way that didn't come out of nowhere just to solve Aang's moral dilemma would have already changed the whole thing, in my opinion. They also could have had the Lion Turtle unlock Aang's avatar state while they were at it instead of some random conveniently placed rock.
Random conveniently placed rock.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah.
Hi.
I think it was something to do with Aang's chi paths being twisted and nothing to do with his mental state, so it needed a physical solution, but that rock was just as much of a deus ex machina as the Lion Turtle. But maybe that's an avatar thing. Things just happen the way they do for reasons.
It's a fate. Or destiny?
Ah, potatoes. Tomatoes. Aang had to temporarily die, and Aang had to conveniently meet the Lion Turtle, and he had to conveniently hit his back on a random stone. Such things simply happen to the Avatar, like, who knows?
Yeah,
just happens.
The daily life of an Avatar. Hit random conveniently placed rocks just when you need them.
Yeah, I don't know, I found it an interesting question to ponder, whether Aang should have killed Ozai. And if the Lion Turtle hadn't come out of nowhere, the whole discussion we got to see between Aang and his past lives alone already made for a great narrative to support not killing him. Because Aang spared him despite everyone telling him it was a necessary sacrifice of his beliefs, and he stood up and stood by his principles. It would have been better to not just hand him the energy bending on a silver platter though, and have him earn it one way or another. Search for it, perhaps bargain for it, or fight for it. Something that isn't just getting blessed by a random Lion Turtle.
To sum it up, violence is not the answer.
Violence is the question, and the answer is yes.
No. No, it's not. The
yes,
answer is
is
no. But Aang should have killed Ozai anyways.
Yes.
Yes.
No. Maybe.
Yes. Maybe. Well,
it's like,
had they made it better and not a silver platter, I might also have preferred that Aang not killing Ozai, but with what we got, I say, kill him. Kill him, Aang. Kill him.
wow. The Hufflepuff is more violent than me. Wow.
I don't
I'm the one
know
who's
what
always
you're
for bloodshed.
talking about.
No, it's just, I love that it's like Aang decided not to do it despite him and found a solution, but like just have him work for the solution, please and thank you. And also maybe weave it in earlier with like mention it and allude to it and yada yada, and like the spirit world is just there, right? Ready to be used. Maybe Netflix will do it better.
Maybe.
So yeah.
Netflix show?
I wonder, with it coming out, how are they going to handle the balance between humor and seriousness? How will they include humor in the first place, if at all? Will they adapt it to a more mature audience?
It's going to be interesting to see what they will cut out and what they will add in the live action. Many things seem so random, but every episode adds something to the world and the character development.
Yes, very much true.
And I hope they make use of the fact that they aren't bound to an episodic style to expand on character arcs. For example, I would like to see the change of Zukka as he learns women can be badass fighters too, to be a bit slower. It felt rushed to me. Have him reluctantly train with the Kyoshi warriors and slowly change his mentality during training. Seeing more of the training would also be a better setup for the eventual love story we got. It's also unrealistic that he became this good in swordsmanship in one single day of training in book 3. That's, yeah.
Although his arc from goofy and, well, misogynistic to, supporting the baddest girls in his life and becoming a genius strategist leader, that one was spaced out and very well done in the original show, I think.
Yes.
Which I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to offend the hardcore fans by changing things and actually smoothing out the flaws the original show had? Or will they keep close to the original, It should offend people like myself and also make me ask, what do we need it for then?
If you put it like that, they really can only lose.
True. Even with the One Piece live action that is generally beloved by all, which actually did adapt it to live action. With an anime, you have to adapt it because animes are just... There are certain things you cannot do. You cannot do in live action that you can do in anime.
All of a sudden, Garp was sus.
Yeah, that's just stuff. It's like, overall, yes, it was well done, but like, why is Garp sus now? What the hell happened there? And for Mihawk, his voice, I just couldn't know. I could not take him serious. I don't know why they decided it, and I don't know whether that's awesome or not. But yeah, no,
I found it entertaining.
Garp is not supposed to be sus. That weirded me out. But overall, yeah, it's like, wow, we got a good live action for once. Still, yeah, it's if you keep all the flaws and don't make use of the assets you have that Last Airbender did not back in the day to improve it, we can just go and watch our beloved nostalgic animated series instead, can't we? Why would I watch a live action show where Zuko's scar is so small? Too small. And Azula looks way too soft for her viciousness. If I can have the gorgeous animation instead.
Well, it is realistic for a teenage girl to still have some baby fat left.
I will wait to see how good her acting is.
Yeah, maybe the looks are just deceiving you.
We'll see. If her acting can make up for it, sure. I need... Azula is vicious and cold and a genius, and I need that. Please and thank you. Also, the first teaser trailer did look gorgeous, except for Zuko's scar and Appa and Momo, but otherwise, wow, impressive. Yes. But still, what is it with people not making his scar big? Making a statement?
I don't know.
Just, yeah, like with One Piece and other shows, Netflix has proven that it can create awesome shows and adaptations, and that it will viciously cancel those if they are not ridiculously popular in the first week. If you ask me, that's not the right strategy. You should... I personally think that releasing episodes on a weekly basis rather than all at once might help, but who am I to tell them that? No, it's just...
Yeah. Well, they don't want to make their audience wait.
But it's just a better marketing strategy and also easier for us to watch.
Yeah, I have to agree. Weekly release, it makes you think at the end of the episode, like, where the next episode? I want to watch the next episode already.
It makes you come back every week. Because otherwise I just never... It's like, I don't really use Netflix all that much. Because I don't really I only really just do it for episode preparation these months.
Well, and for watching Naruto.
Not me anymore. Just, don't have the time for Netflix. Netflix has also taken on a very hard task in adapting a show as hyped up and overrated and fiercely loved as Avatar: The Last Airbender. A legacy that Legend of Korra already suffered from greatly. And I am looking forward to it. I am tentatively hopeful as of now being the middle of December. Yet I ask myself, who is this for?
Money.
So... you can find us on Twitter, Spotify, and YouTube under Tea and Toffies.
And if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a comment. Do you think Aang should have killed Fire Lord Ozai, the Phoenix King?
Did you think Last Airbender was a masterpiece or overhyped? Was it actually good? Was it?
And what are your thoughts on the upcoming Netflix live action series? And also, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, please and thank you.
Stay tuned for a look into great and actually not so great world building that we are definitely, maybe, but certainly doing next episode. Next.
And Neitshayd getting angry about dragons. That will happen as well.
Yeah. Yes, I will get furious. Well, until next time. Bye bye.
Bye.